Yo, welcome to Tokimotive. My name's Corey. I haven't officially properly introduced myself, and I kind of wanted to leave this welcome video until I was a bit more comfortable on camera. 25. I moved from Gympie, a smaller town further north, down to Brisbane because the car scene here is pretty thriving with so many tracks local and close by. But I've always had a love for cars. Ever since I was little, I can't remember a time that I wasn't playing with Hot Wheels cars or watching like Fast and the Furious and playing car games, all the rest of it. And then once I started getting a little bit older, I started playing around with them and tinkering and just kind of really fell in love with it. I've had other hobbies and stuff like that, but they all just sort of came and went. None of it really stuck as a passion like cars have. I've had a lot of cars over the years. I don't even know where to start to try and list them. I'll give it a go anyway, the ones that stick in my head. My first car I got given was a Mazda Bravo Ute 4-drive thing that I cleaned up the tray and never did anything else with. Ford Laser TX3. Just a front-wheel drive NA model, but with the Mazda Familiar motor in it. It was a cool, zippy little car, all the rest of it, and then the chip in the ECU got fried and it never ran right since, so I sold it off pretty cheap. I had a 5-speed Commodore that had flake in the paint that was so thick it felt like sandpaper. Was so dumb low that the tail shaft had worn a hole in the tunnel. So that didn't really last long. I sold that on as well. Had a little white Lightning model Celica. This was back in the days of where it was just all I did to cars really. I kept buying cars with blown clutches for some reason. So all I was really doing is changing clutches and installing stereos and neons and killing the battery. Because I was like 12, 13, 14, I didn't have a license and just kind of used to run around out in the paddock in the bush because I lived out of town at that point. I picked up a Hilux Ute 2-wheel drive in the plans of making it like a mini truck, a low lux sort of thing, and did a bit to that, swapped seats, swapped motors, started restoring the body. A motor I got sold, didn't really work out, turned out to have a blown head gasket and I kind of just gave up on it, to be honest. And this Vintara TRX front wheel drive thing, it used to roll like 1.5 meter flames every time you revved it. It was pretty cool. Another car with a blown clutch. Cleaned it up, doubled my money on that car. Then I got the XL, which Mum's car had just blown up. I wanted to get my license in. That came up reasonably priced. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll get it. And I thought it was cool. Kinda really wasn't, but I thought it was at the time. Bright orange, had like 17-inch chrome wheels and a fiberglass body kit. Extractors, 2.5-inch straight through exhaust. It was obnoxious, but it was kind of fun and it got me around for a year or so and till I wrote it off. It was kind of my first car that I had long enough to really start doing stuff to it. It progressed from this weird little sex spec thing that I drove around on the streets and had big subs and all the rest of it. I kept big subs, but I slowly developed a like for going sideways in that, and I started throwing it around in the forestry a lot. Just dirt roads, they were my thing. I was just hooking it, so the fiberglass body kit was destroyed within a couple of months. 17s went out the window, I picked up a set of 14s, and then one day I came unstuck and I ended up plowing into a concrete fence. And then I got another XL, transferred all my stuff over to it. That's when it came up to about the time I started going away working with a couple of mates, and then talking to my mate Kurt, I'm like, I want to get into rear-wheel drive stuff. I'm sick of being that front-wheel drive XL kid. I want something fairly cheap that is just strong, that I'm going to struggle to kill. I'm used to a car that you can put a brick on limiter, go have some lunch, come back, and it'll still be as fine as when you left it. So he's like, get a 31. They got an RB30 and treat them right and they last forever. So it's like, alright, yep, cool. I'll start keeping an eye out. I originally wanted a sedan. Driving back from work a day later, right down the road from my house, I see a blue 31 wagon sitting in the front of some guy's yard. Alright, that's got to be some sort of sign. So I dropped my stuff off, teed up Kurt to come have a look with me. We went around and looked over it. It had rusted out battery tray, blown radiator, and was auto. But all in all, it was pretty tidy. Like, the car was nice and straight. But the way I've always bought a car is by feel. So I jumped in it, like, yep, I want it. Threw around some offers, ended up getting into 800. Went home and started looking for stuff I could sell to make it happen nice and quick. I sold my Hot Wheels car collection, my BMX, and borrowed money off a roommate. Went around the next day and bought the car off him and drove it up the road back to my house. I was lucky I did hustle that hard to get the money for it, because even a couple of friends of mine were going to buy it within the next week. And that's sort of where the wagon story and my real story with cars begins. Ever since I got the car, I was just diving headfirst into different jobs and honestly just doing a little bit of research and then over enthusiastically just winging it and going for it, and it's kind of what's got me to where I am now. The first push was to get it on the road. That was, I had $50 a fortnight spare because I just moved out of home and I was paying all my bills and rent and food and fuel, all the rest of it, putting away that $50 or selling parts or doing work on people's cars for money. That's when I bought my second wagon. I had all the little bits and pieces I need, like seat belts and gearbox, and had a radiator, all that sort of stuff. So it was a perfect buy. The push was to get it on the road. I manual converted it. I welded up an exhaust, added 3 stock exhausts because all the ones I had holes in them. So I just kind of pieced some scrap and old exhaust together to make it work. And that was my first real attempt with welding properly. Let's face it, it looked like crap. But it worked and it got it on the road. And after that, it was the S13 conversion, which I'd never done much with suspension or brakes, anything like that. And I kind of just dove into it and it turned out fine. I'll put this in here. I'm a very shy, sort of awkward person. I was very in my shell. I didn't really feel comfortable being myself. And that's one of the things the car scene's kind of bought for me, is it is a place where I meet like-minded people. One of my first big memories of this car, I've had it on the road not for very long. It's got the S13 conversion in it, so it's low, that's about it. And I'm driving back from doing a bit of a meat crawl across the Sunshine Coast. So I went round to a few little ones and got some pictures in car parks. None of them turned out very good, but I was having fun. And on the way back, I didn't realise how terrible my fuel gauge was. And I'm hooking onto the on-ramp near Noosa and nothing, just dies on me. Coughs, dies, and I'm stuck on the side of the road, and I've got like $20 to my name, which give me enough fuel to get home, but I've got no jerry can and no way to the servo. So I put a post up on Zip Ties asking if someone could help a broke 31 owner out, have enough for the fuel, but no jerry can and no way to get there. Don't have much to offer apart from some unwanted magic cards and a half-used can collects deodorant. That's when I met one of my mates. He turned up in a red 31 wagon with a locked diff, and we've been friends ever since. He took me to get fuel, and then we stood on the side of the road and talked for 2-3 hours. Like, the guy I'd never met before in my life. And that's one of the big things I love about cars in general. Like, there are people out there, they'll give you the shirt off their back to help out a fellow car enthusiast. And I kind of fed off what he was doing. He did an NA plus T conversion to his, and that's when chasing turbo started happening. Picked up an RB30 carby to put in my mate's patrol because he blew his up. And he gave me his turbo motor because he was a ways off getting his opens, I believe. And that was the deal we struck. I'll help him put in a motor, I'll find the motor if I could have his turbo one. It sat there, I did a few little bits and pieces to it, and then I hit my opens. And the week I hit my opens, out came the other motor, assembled my cooler piping out of scrap stuff I picked up off Facebook, cheap intercooler off Facebook. I just dove headfirst into it, put it in, cleaned up the engine bay, did all the rest of it, and turned out my VL turbo ECU was dead. What I ended up doing was what my mate had done with his Red 31 wagon, which he did a full NA plus T. So I picked up an adjustable fuel pressure reg. I threw 60 psi fuel pressure at it, the stock injectors back in, and never ran too right. It'd be just before it got on boost, it'd have a big stutter, put out a big cloud of smoke, and then boom, she'd go. And this turbo had a crazy small rear housing and a big front housing, so it came on at like 2.2, hit hard as hell, and then fell off to nothing. But it was my first turbo conversion and it was fun. I loved it. It was good. I fell in love with boost at that point. Leading up to boost, so I locked the diff, I put a mini spool in it and replaced all the bushings underneath. Kind of put a 023 equivalent in the Aeroflow pump. I got it all ready for it, so the car was sorted. About 3 or 4 months later, I blew the head gasket because I took the brain off, but I had fun with it. So I took that motor out. I didn't have the money to replace the head gasket, so I decided to swap the motor, which ended up being more expensive. So yeah, I put my old motor back in, put the turbo stuff on it. So I realized, okay, I need to upgrade the setup. I can't keep running this cowboy setup with the high fuel pressure, NAECU, and bulk amounts of climbing to keep it running. So I got myself an Ishtune chip, saved that little bit of money and put it in myself, and it worked alright. And then I got not quite defected, but I got pulled up and he's like, where's your blue plate for that? And I was like, don't have one. I was getting the car ready so that it was all sorted. I did go to get it mod plated. So I set up the car to get ready to go get mod plated. I decided, I'll get a better turbo, which it wasn't a better turbo at all. I got a 3582 off eBay. I thought, 0.63 rear housing, it's small, it'll be nice and punchy still, but it's big power, awesome. No, not really. I didn't really know the difference in turbo frame size. I was just sort of reading ARs at that point. I set the car up with that, redid all the dump pipe and the exhaust and everything like that again. Did a much better setup on that, the wastegate flowed better, all the rest of it. Got it mod plated, started driving it again, and that's when I went to my first Matsuri. But after that first Matsuri trip, that's sort of when my real passion for drifting kicked off. Like, I fell in love with it and I couldn't get enough. My skills improved so much over the weekend and I loved that. And I drove the car down there, I beat on it all weekend and I drove it home and I was so proud of myself. Everyone thought it was gonna blow up because I built it myself. And it didn't. It held together and I drove it home. So, a little while down the track, I blew another head gasket. I was trying to tune it with the mate with the Red 31 wagon, and we turned the boost up one more click. My boost controller failed, doubled the boost. We ran off the map, it pinged its brain out, blew the head gasket, hydrolocked the engine. We replaced the head gasket in his yard under a gazebo like the next day. I threw a couple of turbo manifolds because they were just just failing. I made the mistake of buying twice. I went cheap, trying to save money, ended up spending more money than a 6 boost anyway. So I got my 6 boost, had a look at the motor, I'm like, this motor's got 90 psi of compression in cylinder 1. And it's like, okay, maybe that's why it's so doughy, so sluggish. Because that motor was never quite as peppy as the one I had before. So I took the head off the old motor that I blew the head gasket on. I cleaned it all up. I sat there and I was working out of a shipping container at the time, trying to save money again with just a whetstone on top, getting that nice smooth surface, and I went ARP studs and a chromatic head gasket. Got the head skimmed, all the rest of it, and sweet, that was awesome. It was good. I put it together, I was driving it, and then I put my 6 boost on and spun a bearing in the bottom end 10 metres down the road, because oil pumped out the side of my oil sander and I didn't realise it was cracked. Was going down to Rayleigh a couple of weeks later for an invite-only drift event, and obviously that went out the window. And that's when the Forge motor I've got came up. I poured a daily, a Colorado Ute. I was out trying to four-wheel drive in it and got stuck. And one of the guys that came out and rescued us, I was talking to him and he had a forged RB30 there from one of his patrols. And it's like, okay, we worked out a price of what he'd want for it and ended up getting it for $3,000. I basically deposited my tax return into his bank because I put a turbo off him as well, which is the one that's on it. I'll go over this setup in a moment. And so then that one went on a stand and I started sorting it out, swapping the sump. Built myself a large head drain, runs down to the sump. I put all that in, I set it up, and then I just started driving it. And I started beating the hell out of it. It was sort of okay, I need to make this thing run right. And at this point, I changed a few maps on the niche tune setup, and I kept upgrading. I ended up with the N1 PMAS, top of the line, band angle thing. At that point, it had been working. It had been working well. I was tuning my own cars, road tuning them, and it was working fine. But slowly I started chasing more and more and more issues. Some days it'd be a little rocket ship, and then the next day it'd be a piece of crap and I couldn't even start it. Turns out the whole wiring loom was pretty well cooked. It had broken connections everywhere. You couldn't touch any of it without it changing the car. I had to weigh up the options. I had either get a new loom and make a factory loom work and run with the niche tune, which I wasn't very happy with in the end, or go Haltech. I had mates encouraging me to get it done by a shop constantly or get a pre-made loom. But I didn't need all the features of a Haltech 2000, which was the only one I could get a pre-made 30 loom for, and I didn't want to spend the money to get someone to make the loom for me. And I'm kind of stubborn. I like to do everything myself and learn. That's what this whole car's been. To be honest, I'm about 20 grand into a 31 wagon. But the amount of stuff I've learned on this car over the time has more than paid for itself. And the fun that I've had in it has more than paid for itself. I have zero regret about the money I've spent on it. I dove headfirst into making my own wiring harness. I got the Elite 750, got the bits I needed, started getting all my coverings, all my plugs, all my sensors, got everything. I was in over my head, but I did it. It looks good, and it ran perfect. I set up all my sensors in the ECU, had everything done, did a quick base map on it. VE tuning is, the way that's set up in the Haltech is amazing and I loved it. But that's when it got its first visit to the dyno. He updated the firmware on the ECU and it wiped my tune. And then he asked if I had a backup copy because everything was set up right. So I ended up getting the tune for half price because I made it so easy for him. And it ended up knock limited at 350 horsepower and 520 Nm of torque. because it's such a fresh motor, it's a forged motor, and the compression's too high. It turns out it had a stock cam. The internals of it were designed for a patrol, so it's still a 9:1 compression. When I got it to the track for another Matsuri, I noticed it was a bit lazy coming on the boost, which it never was, and then it was getting hot. It was getting real hot, really quick. I decided, nah, alright, it's time. I'm gonna have a look at this map. So I had a look at it, and it's 20% duty cycle for the boost control over the whole thing, which I was like, okay, that's not right. That's a big boost leak until it's on boost. So I got rid of over half the map of that. That made it more responsive. Over the space of a couple of hours, I threw 4 degrees more timing at it over the entire map, and it just livened up. It stopped getting hot, it stopped being lazy, and yes, it's probably risking the motor a bit, but I pulled the plugs out just before in my last video doing Matsuri prep, and they're not green. There's no sign that it's been pinging its head off. Like, it could have been getting false knock readings because the lifters are cooked. They are so loud, it's ridiculous. The motor sounds like it's rattling apart. So it could have been a number of things, but the maps themselves are decent, but wasn't really to my liking. So eventually the plan is cam E85, and we should max that turbo out around the 500 mark, give or take a bit. And that's kind of where we arrived to the point where I'm at now, which I'm pretty happy with the setup at the moment. I'll give you a bit of an overview of it. It has a stock style cam in it, which is the big limiting factor of the whole motor. I ended up going with R31 coils, the Golby's version of them, which I like that kit. I got 1000cc injectors, Haltech Elite 750, which I did all the loom and harness, everything myself. We got Plasman top half plenum, which I wanted to keep the long lower runners for torque reasons, just because it's a drift car and I like being able to let off and just stamp on it and it's back again. And it's nice and tidy. I really enjoy the look of them, even more than the ones down on the side. Stock radiator, which works fine. GK Tech fan, which if you get a GK Tech, one of their high flow fans, a VL fan hub, they bolt directly to. It's the same bolt pattern as the SR21, so you don't need an adapter. When I did the Haltech, I kept the CAS set up in it for my trigger system. I got HKS 3037, which is basically a 3076. They just slightly redesigned the front and rear housing. Ball bearing job. A Turbo Smart fuel pressure reg, which I built a heat shield for last Matsuri. It was actually cooking and dropping fuel pressure as the car got hot. Turbo Smart 50mm gate, and this, which is my head drain, which it's large. I forget exactly what size this is, but it runs from here down through and goes into the sump down near the engine mount. And this has probably made a big difference of why I can keep beating on it and I barely ever fill catch cans. A little bit more so now I'm revving it to 7 grand with the Haltech. It makes a huge difference. For your head drains, it's not just about getting oil away from the head, it's about equalizing pressure between the top and the bottom end, because obviously you've got a lot of boost pressure and a lot of compression and all the rest of it. You're pressurizing the sump to an extent. Giving that a way to breathe is what allows your motor to stop pumping oil to the head. It allows it to drain back. It's got a 25 deck gearbox conversion because I shattered third, which I'll tack a little clip. So all we've got for suspension in the rear is basically Nissan Vanette shocks and some Chop King springs, which as you can see I've got the 3-inch exhaust that I've done all the way through up there. As for interior setup, just whatever bucket seats I could get cheap. I like the Bride for fit for myself. Whatever wheel was the right offset to drive nice with. as for steering setup and suspension, I've got I run RE003s and a 225 up the front, and I've got solid billet steering bush, curved caster arms. That's an adapter bracket to put S13 ones in, S13 conversion, quality max speeding rod coilovers, cheap but have lasted over 3 years now. So, and GK Tech roll center correction kit, and that's pretty well it. As for driving, same thing as building this. I just had a go at it and learnt along the way. The way I said, drifting is one of those things you learn by doing. You can't learn it out of a book. It's a feel sport. You've got to feel the car. You just learn by doing it. But the biggest thing that stepped up my driving at the back half of last year was I stopped hesitating. I thought about it, I'm like, where's that full send attitude gone? And I just went for it. And then my laps have been getting better ever since, and my driving has just stepped up so much. I've started confidently trying to go into tandems with people and just getting amongst it and just really enjoying it. When you take the hesitation and the fear of judgment out of it, you free yourself up. You get so much better at your driving, you're so much happier, and that's my biggest advice for it. Just get out, have a go. You'll spin out, you'll make mistakes, but you'll learn. And it's one of those things, once it's under your skin, that's it, it's there, it's stuck. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. My voice is starting to die from talking so much. For those of you that asked questions leading up to this and gave me ideas of what you'd like to see in this video, thank you very much. That's a big help. I hope I've addressed everything well. And for new and current subscribers, I want to say we just hit 50. Thank you very much. It's only a small milestone, but it's huge for me, and I'm really happy with that. If you like the channel or you like this video and you want to see more and show some support, like, comment, subscribe. It helps support the channel massively, and I'd really appreciate it. And if you just want to have a chat, or you got any more questions, anything you want to know, feel free to comment below, or go check out my Instagram, which I post daily on, and you can come have a chat, send me a message. I'll link that in the description below. But if you've made it through to the end, thank you, welcome, and I'm really enjoying this. We just hit 50 subscribers, so thanks everyone for the support, and I'll see you on the next one.